Hey everyone, Julian here, and today I am going to be showing you how to make hard techno like Lothan. As usual, you can get the full project file and samples and MIDI presets. Everything from this video is available right at the top of the description for just $5 on my Bandcamp. And if you're a patron on my Patreon, check there because it's already available. And yeah, here we go. So this is a loop from the intro. It's 143 BPM, a little bit faster, but you know it gives you that like kind of intense upbeat sort of feel. The first sound that we have here is the pad, which sounds like this. So we're in the key of C# minor, and you can see what this pad is playing is it's just droning on the C# and G#. So we have C#, the root note, G# being the fifth, and then we have this sort of melody up here where it's going. And then yeah, so it's just kind of playing that. While the lower half drones on. So this is how these kind of pads work. Like when I was listening to a bunch of her tracks, essentially this is what's happening is it's like droning low notes, and then you just kind of have the high notes change to sort of tell the story. And again, it's really simple too. You can see it's only 3 notes at a time. You know, nothing too complicated. It's kind of fitting underneath that ARF. They're both sort of working together to create the ambience and the background melodic stuff in this track. Now, for the sound with this one, it's made using Operator. This is an FM pad. So the way it's made is we have 3 sine waves here, you can see. And then those are just being detuned a little bit. The second one's detuned. And then I have the octaves on these set differently as well, which that's how you get that like slightly metallic but still pretty sine wavy sound. Like if I put these all back to normal, you can see. So yeah, and then those are going into a low pass filter. Here's without it. And then with it, so you can hear it just kind of gets rid of some of that sharpness in the high end that would clash a bit with the ARP. This is something that's important to keep in mind when you're making this style of stuff where it's, you know, pretty intense, pretty busy. There's a lot going on. Every step of the way, you have to do stuff like this, like cutting out these highs, just to make sure like nothing is gonna clash with each other. And yeah, then we just have a bit of chorus as well as a bit of reverb. These just give the sound some space and kind of spread it out a bit. Here is without those. You can hear what those are doing, you know, it makes it this like smoother pad. And then finally, we just have this being saturated a little. There's without it. And with it, you can hear it makes it a bit fatter. And then finally, I have a high pass filter cutting out the low end, and that is it for the pad. After that, we have this ARP, which sounds like this. So what's happening here is it's a polyrhythm. Essentially, the way that I wrote this is I started with just this. Literally just this little line. And then what I did is I just duplicated it over a whole bunch of times. Now, we get rid of those. But you can see what you do is you just select it and then duplicate it. And then what happens is now every time the pattern restarts, it's a little bit irregular. So we get kind of like. This is like a different rhythm happening underneath everything else, which is just dun, 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 dun. Hence the term polyrhythm. Poly meaning multi. So now the extra step with this, so once we had this, like we can just duplicate this over to fill it out. Then the next step was I took some of these notes in the second half and shifted them. Because you can see we took all these highest notes, moved them up there. And then I took all of these and did that. So it's like. And I like doing it this way because, again, we get the polyrhythm. Like you can see, this actually starts, bar 3 comes in on the highest note, but it still sounds fine because you're still getting that C# in the bottom. And yeah, it creates something really hypnotic and really cool like this. So then for the sound with this one, this is just a pretty standard super saw type of sound. You can see we have 2 saw waves here. I've got the second one an octave up, and then I've got this going into a low pass. As you can see, I actually put the amp envelope on, so it's not doing much. And then we've got this LFO here, which is actually on the pitch. So if I turn this, you can hear it's creating this kind of like buzzy, sort of like hard techno style sound. So yeah, that's how you do that. It's just by turning up a really, really fast LFO on the pitch, and then you just don't want to use too much. Like the key here is just keeping it at like 9% there, because when we start turning it up, it gets kind of messed up. And yeah, and then the final thing here, as you can see, I've got the classic unison mode on here, and then I've got the voices and the amount all the way up. So yeah, this is pretty chorused out, you know, pretty warbly and hard sounding. Then after that, we've just got a bit of chorus, spreading the sound out a bit. This is about that, and with it. And then we have this echo as well as this reverb, which are giving it space. You can see I've got the echo on the ping pong setting, and I turn the filter up. And then the reverb's pretty long, so again, these are just kind of giving it some space, you know, spreading the sound out a bit, making it a bit bigger. Then finally, we just have a saturator, which is fattening it up and bringing out this reverb and echo a bit. And then we have a high pass filter cutting out the low end, and that is it for the ARP. After that, we have this kick, which sounds like this. So this kick is made using 2 layers. With these kind of like harder techno kicks, it tends to have that like mid-rangey kind of punch to it. So the way that I go about getting that is by using 2 layers. You can see we have this one, which I'll play without the rumble. So this is sort of like the main punch. And then we have this layer to be that distorted mid-range. So what this is it's this sort of like harder kick, and then I've taken an EQ3 and soloed just the mids. And then I put this pedal on here, and pedal is a really good way of distorting kicks. Because a lot of times, like with hard techno, the way people make the more distorted kicks is by putting techno kicks or like a 909 kick or something like that through a distortion pedal for a guitar. And that's what this is meant to sound like. So again, you can hear what it's doing. And then you put it together with that first kick, and you get this nice, like, kind of punchy mid-range. Whereas if we just use the first kick, you know, it still hits hard, but it's not got that same, like, to it that you need. So yeah, and then we've got those 2 kicks going into this rumble here, which is a pretty standard rumble. You can see we have our dry chain, and then we have the rumble. Now, the thing that makes this rumble unique is the fact that I'm using 8th notes. Usually, you wouldn't just have your rumble going do 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 do. You know, usually it would be like 16th notes, or dotted 8th notes, or something like that. But this one being 8th notes just gives you that do 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 do, kind of like hypnotic driving rhythm that sits really well underneath everything. Like, keep in mind how busy this track is and how much stuff is going on, but then that kick and bass line is still just do 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 do. So it keeps the whole thing driving. So yeah, and then I've got the delay going into an amp, which you can hear what that does. You know, it makes it a lot more rumbly, but it also adds a lot of high end, so we have a low pass filter. And then I just have it being sidechained to the dry kick. That's what it's being sidechained to. And then we have this EQ8 just cutting out a bit of room at 100 Hertz and boosting the lows a bit. And then the last thing here is just a bit of drum bus. So here's without this. And with it, this hard setting is really good for these types of kicks. I don't usually use it, but I wanted to show it to you guys in this video because it's really good since it has this limiter on there where it's essentially like kind of squashing the sound a little bit. You can see if I put it to the medium setting and then switch it back, that hard setting just goes a little bit harder. And yeah, that works really well here. Like, it's not over limiting it, but it's just kind of bringing it out and really making that bass line punch through. And then I have the transients turned up a little as well, which makes it punch more than the kick. There's without it. And then with it, so you can hear. Oh yeah, that's it for the kick. After that, we have the hi-hat, which sounds like this. So the way this hi-hat is made is it's meant to be just really big and fat and full. And the way that you do that is by taking basically a regular hi-hat like this, you can see. It's just a regular, straightforward hi-hat. I pitched it up a bunch. And then I've got it going through a bit of reverb. And then we put it through an amp. And then there you go. That's how you get that like deep, fat kind of hi-hat sound. And then you just put it through a bit of saturation after that to kind of bring up the punch a bit more. And then you can hear there's quite a bit of low end in there, so I just high-passed it. And there we go. We get this big, fat, like, hi-hat. And I really don't think that you could get this otherwise. Like, you're just not going to get it to be this big, fat monster like this unless you just put it through an amp. And you can see I have it on the heaviest setting, too. So yeah, that's how you do those hi-hats. And then it's just a matter of making sure that you cut out the high end at the end and making sure that it has enough punch and all of that. But yeah, really simple. Again, just like a nice hi-hat sample going through some distortion. And then the last thing we have here are these noises. So what these are is it's these two different noise samples. I'll play you the originals. So we have these two. And then you can hear I'm putting them through some distortion here. So this gives it that like dark kind of like aggressive sound like you hear in a lot of her tracks, like in the beginning of I Thought You Were Real, for example. This is what's happening. It's just like the kick and this noise. But yeah, this is how you get the really dense, full sounding hard techno noise like this. It's just by putting it through a bit of saturation or distortion like I've done. So yeah, just got it going through the amp, and then I have it being low pass and high pass, because if I turn these off you can hear it's a mess. It's literally just filling up the whole frequency spectrum. So I've cut out the highs a bit to make it less sharp, and then I've cut out the lows a bit to obviously get rid of that like low end rumble that's in there. And yeah, and then finally we just have a compressor side chaining this to the kick so that it kind of fits underneath the kick. And yeah, that's it for the noises. And just to show you, here's the track without them. And then with them. So you can hear it's really subtle, but it's just kind of filling out the background a little bit more and giving it that atmosphere that it needs to really sound authentic and really sound like, you know, when people put on a hard techno track and they think it's super, they're just putting a bunch of distortion on everything and everything is super raw. This is kind of like creating that effect where it's just giving you that background noisy atmosphere. That's going to add to making the overall track sound a lot more full and help to communicate the goal of the track. So yeah, that's going to be it for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed. As always, make sure to like this video as well as subscribe, and let me know what you think of this video in the comments. Like I said in the beginning, you can get this full project file and samples and MIDI presets, everything from this video. It's available right at the top of the description for just $5 on my Bandcamp. This is a really great way to support me, guys, so I can keep making these videos for you. And yeah, like I said in the beginning, you can also get it on my Patreon. Thank you so much, everybody, and I will see you tomorrow with another video.